Today I will be updating you on my November and December knits, giving you an update on some gift knits, and showing you some new things that I acquired in December. Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Hella Knits. My name is Julia. It's been a while. I'm so excited to be sitting down and chatting with you today. I thought today I would just go through all the things I've been knitting in November and December, kind of catch you up on my gift knits and the outcomes of that. It's currently Boxing Day, so I did give all my gift knits away yesterday, but I have one of them here and I have pictures of everything else. So I'm super excited to share all of that with you. Today I'm wearing my sweater number 23 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This is a top-down drop shoulder kind of boxy oversized sweater. I made this in Cascade Superwash Sport in their pink color, and then Sandnes Garn Tin Silk Mohair in the shocking pink color. I thought it would be fitting to wear this sweater today because actually the very first YouTube video I filmed was wearing the sweater, and it was 1 year ago today, exact. So I'm excited to be sitting down chatting with you still 1 year later. I honestly can't believe that it's been an entire year, and I'm so grateful for everyone that's been following along and supporting me in my channel and my YouTube journey this past year. So thank you so much for being here and watching. Let's just get into it. The first thing I want to talk about that I finished since my last video is the Cloud Blouse from Petiteknit. Here it is. It is all done. If you're following along on my other videos, you'll know that I had some trouble picking a size for this pattern. I was between the Cloud Blouse and the Cloud Sweater. The Cloud Blouse has a 20 stitch gauge. The Cloud Sweater is the exact same construction, but it's a 17 or 18 stitch gauge. With the yarn I wanted to use, I had a 19 stitch gauge. I was having trouble picking which size I wanted to do, but I used my desired garment circumference to kind of work backwards, and I landed on the blouse in the size small. So that's the size that I did, and it turned out perfectly. It actually is exactly the circumference that I was hoping it would be, so there was no issues there. The pattern itself is really straightforward. It's just a standard top-down drop shoulder. You pick up for the back, you make some increases on the back to shape the shoulders, then you pick up the shoulders. You have this little purl detail on the shoulder seam and shape the neckline as well. There's a little bit of shaping here. Then you just continue knitting all the way down for the body. There's no decreases. There are some decreases on the sleeves, as well as this little purl detail on the armhole, which I actually really like. And then a few decreases along the sleeve, and then the body and sleeves have this, they have this 1x1 ribbing detail on the end, and then a rolled hem. The neckline is also rolled on this sweater, so you pick up around the neck and you knit just in stockinette and then bind off knitwise. Overall, I am really pleased with the fit of this sweater. I can put some B-roll in of me wearing it. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about the rolled neckline, but I really do like it actually. And I like the way that the shoulders and the sleeves kind of sit. I pretty well knit it to pattern, although I'm not entirely sure what the body length was supposed to be for the pattern, because usually I just knit to however long I think it should be and then bind off. For the sleeves though, I did find that the sleeves were short. Once I knit the sleeves to the length that it called for in the pattern, I tried it on, and they were probably 2 inches shorter than what I wanted them to be, and I knew that it would bother me a lot. So I just went ahead and did one more repeat of decreases, which wound up being about 2 inches, and then I did the ribbing and bound off, and I'm really glad that I did that because it definitely would have been too short otherwise. I was a little skeptical about the rolled neckline. I didn't know if I would like it because this is the first sweater that I've knit with a rolled neckline, and I actually do really like it. I think it's a nice kind of change of pace from my usual folded ribbed neckline. The only thing with this one is I find it's a little boat neck-esque. It's leaning a little boat neck. I don't know if it's just the weight of the sweater or if it's the pattern or what, but I find, you'll see it in the B-roll, the neckline just kind of comes out a little wider than I would want it to. I was kind of hoping that this would be like a crew neck with a roll, but it's a little wide. So I don't know if I'm alone in this. So if you guys have had this issue in rolled neck sweaters, let me know down below. And also, if you have any solutions, let me know. I don't know what I want to do, if I should just leave it, if I should do like one of those crochet reinforcements on the side of the neckline. I wonder if that would help, but I also don't want to screw it up. So let me know what you guys think. Aside from that, I love it. I really like the rolled edges. It kind of reminds me of the Amy sweater with the Petiteknit one with the turtleneck and the rolled edges. Yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about this pattern. I actually really like it. I think if you were questioning making a cloud sweater, I would do it. It's a great pattern. It was easy. It was really enjoyable to knit, and I think partly because of the yarn. Now I can talk about the yarn right now. The yarn I'm using is Ístex Plötulopi in the color 1766, which is this like really fiery orange color. This is 100% unspun Icelandic sheep's wool. So it's really lofty, fluffy, and like lightweight. This is how much I have left over. The yarn that I'm holding this with is Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the color blood orange. Unfortunately, all I have is yarn barf to show you for this other yarn because I did have a yarn chicken incident with this sweater. When I was knitting this, I left the body until the end just to make sure the sleeves were symmetrical. My main concern when knitting this was that I'd run out of Plötulopi, but actually I should have been more worried about running out of mohair. I used some of my mohair in a project in the summer because I was out of another red mohair. I needed to dip into the blood orange, and I probably shouldn't have done that because that meant I was just playing yarn chicken on this sweater. So I knit the body. I was probably one round away from binding off. Like I was doing the stockinette of the rolled hem before I bound off knitwise, and I ran out of mohair. So I had to unravel my bind off and go back 3 rounds or so and then re-knit to the end to make sure I had enough. Now, in hindsight, it was fine because the length difference was only a couple rounds shorter, and the body is a perfect length anyway, but it was really devastating getting so close to the end and then just completely running out of mohair. So that is why this is a mess. I also had to dip into my swatch at the end of the day, so let's get this unsightly mess out of the way. I really did enjoy knitting with this yarn though. This was my first time knitting with an unspun yarn. I was worried that I would have trouble knitting with it because I've heard horror stories about it just coming apart and tearing when you're knitting with it, just being an absolute nightmare. So I was going in with that sort of anticipation, but it actually wasn't that bad. I think knitting the gauge swatch really helped me sort of get my technique and get my bearings knitting with an unspun yarn. I've said this before, but knitting with an unspun yarn is definitely not a travel-friendly project. I found the best way of knitting with it is just having the plate kind of flat on the ground and pulling gently from the yarn ball, because if you let it tumble around in a bag or if it gets caught on anything, it will just rip. Good thing is it's easy to kind of splice it back together when it does rip, but it is annoying, so it wasn't very travel-friendly, which is fine. Once I kind of got the hang of it, it wasn't that bad, and I actually think that knitting it with a mohair helped kind of reinforce it and reduce the amount that it was ripping when I was knitting with it. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed working with the unspun yarn, and the fabric is really, really nice. I thought the final object would be kind of loftier and lighter than it is, but it actually has a good amount of weight and drape to it. I'm not sure if that's because of the mohair. I'm sure it definitely contributes to it, but it's not as heavy as something with like alpaca or merino, if that makes sense. I don't know, it's kind of a nice in-between like an entirely mohair sweater that's really, really light and then something heavier like alpaca. Here, a little classic shake to give you the drape. I'm really happy with it. I'm super, super pleased with how it turned out. Let me know what you guys think. I really love this color too. The color is like, I think the blood orange mohair kind of balanced out the orange tones of the sweater and made it more red and less orange, which I'm a fan of, honestly. Yeah, this is my cloud blouse from Petiteknit. The next thing I finished since my last video is a pair of convertible mittens. I did keep myself accountable. I cast on and I finished a pair of convertible mittens. So I chatted about this in my last video. These mittens were actually a gift knit from my dad. I gave them to him yesterday, so I don't have them with me, but I do have some pictures that I took before I gave them away. The pattern, let's talk about the pattern first. So this is a pair of convertible mittens. They're called the Niilo-lapaset from Anni Seppälä. The pattern is originally only available in Finnish, but I translated it into English and it was definitely worth the effort. I made another pair of these back in the summer for my boyfriend in the Topsy Farms Worsted in the color Purple Heather, and they turned out so great. I can put some pictures here as well. They're really practical. They have a little flap top so you can have a little more dexterity than a usual mitten. and also they came together so quickly, so I was really excited to make another one of these, and I thought my dad would really appreciate it, which he did. I also made these in the Topsy Farms Worsted, but this was in the color medium gray, which is the same yarn that I knit my Dagmar zipper sweater in. I had one ball left over. It was essentially one entire ball left over from my Dagmar zipper sweater, so I thought it would be the perfect amount of yarn to make another pair of mittens. The last pair I made took one ball of yarn, but I did have some left over. So this time I made the ribbing on the cuff like 10 rounds longer than the last pair to use up a little more yarn because I didn't want to have too much left over. But unfortunately I did have to dip into my Dagmar zipper sweater swatch to finish them because the cuff was maybe a little bit too long. So this is what I'm working with. This is how much yarn I have left of the Topsy Farms Worsted. And I was hoping to keep this swatch, but it did have to go, unfortunately, to finish the mittens, but that's okay. This yarn is from Topsy Farms. It is 100% natural, undyed, and it's actually a local sheep farm to me, so I was really happy to be able to work with this yarn again. I honestly really like this yarn, although it is very sheepy, so I had to wash the mittens a few times to get all of the dirt and whatever else out of them, but that's okay. It's worth the effort. That's pretty much all there is to say about the yarn. I love working with this yarn. The gauge that it gave me, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'll put it on the screen. It is different than the gauge in the pattern. So I knit these mittens on a 3mm needle, which is what it calls for, but my gauge was quite a bit bigger than what the pattern gauge is. So I knit the size medium, I think. It's the second largest size, but it gave me the measurements for the largest size. I knit the cuff with a 2.5mm needle, and like I said, I did extend it from the recommended length in the pattern. Aside from that, I knit it essentially to pattern. I'm honestly really happy with how these mittens turned out. My dad really loves them. I think he'll get a lot of wear out of them. And I'm honestly just jealous because now I want a pair of convertible mittens, so that could be a project for 2026. That was a successful gift knit. Yeah, that was the second thing I finished since my last video. The next and final thing I finished since my last video is an ear flap hat. I will just show it to you and then I'll talk about it. Here it is. It is incredible. Here are the flaps. And then it has these little strings on it. I will talk about the yarn first. So this is knit with 2 different yarns, obviously. The first yarn that I used for the main color is a yarn that we got on our trip to Iceland. This is from Uppspuni Mini Mill. It is a local Icelandic sheep farm and yarn mill. This is their Hulduband base in a natural gray color. I don't think it has a number. It's just a natural undyed gray. This was advertised as a worsted, but it's really more of like a sport weight yarn, I would say. So this is the main color. This is 100% Icelandic sheep's wool and it's hand spun. You can definitely tell it's hand spun because there were some parts of it that were thick and some parts that were really thin, but overall the fabric evened out pretty well. The contrast color I picked up while I was on a rotation for school in Peterborough, Ontario. I went to their local yarn store, which is called Needles in the Hay. I had actually checked out their website previously, but I'd never been there, so it was a really cute shop, and I have some other goodies that I got from there, which I'll show you at the end of the video. But I picked this up. This is a mono yarns in the Andes base, and it's in the color 2700, which is this kind of gray taupe. It's like a gray base, but it has these almost little brown and dark gray tweedy bits. Hopefully you can see that. The employee at the yarn shop actually helped me pick this out. I came in with my main color and I basically said I want a contrast color that's the same thickness, and because this is a hand spun yarn, it was kind of hard for me to say what gauge I was looking for, you know, so I just brought it in and she helped me. I found this one. This is technically a fingering weight yarn, but I thought it was kind of plump and it looks to be about the same gauge as the Hulduband yarn. So I was really happy with the contrast of these two. The brown and gray tones in this one really complement the natural color of the Hulduband, so that's what I went with. These are the 2 yarns that I used. Knitting with them was really pleasant. I really enjoyed working with the Hulduband. As I said, it's hand spun, so it definitely was a little inconsistent in terms of the thickness, but I think that kind of adds to the rustic character of the yarn. And it has these really nice like hairy kind of fibers on it that give it a really beautiful texture and fluff, but it isn't quite like mohair level texture, you know? And it shows up really nicely on the finished kind of blocked fabric. It kind of like insulates itself with these little fibers. The Amano yarn is also really nice. It's a 60% alpaca, 40% Patagonia wool, and it feels really, really nice. Like, I would think that with the Patagonia wool, it would be scratchier than what it is, but it's really nice and soft. It almost feels like a sock yarn, but it's not superwash. And it also has these really nice kind of hairy fluffs on it, I guess you could say, which the Hulduband is not alpaca, but it has these little hairs, so I think the textures really complemented each other as well. The hat turned out so well, in my unbiased opinion. You can see the nice texture and the way that it all blocked out. The fibers kind of melded together. I loved working with both of these yarns, honestly. I'll talk about the pattern now. I had a bit of a struggle with the pattern situation, I'm not gonna lie. I really wasn't sure what pattern to use, and I chatted about this in my last video. I had a couple ideas just depending on the gauge of the yarn. The Hulduband was advertised as a worsted yarn. I thought it might plump up to a worsted weight, but it definitely does not. So it's closer to like a fingering or a sport weight yarn. So that left me with having to find another hat pattern because I was looking at worsted weight hat patterns. I found one from Purl Soho, which is what I wound up going with. So this is the top down ear flap hat from Purl Soho. The way it's constructed is you start in the middle, you have increases like in a sort of an X shape all the way down. You start increasing, I think it's every round, and then you change to every other round. Then you just knit in the round all the way down. You put the one ear flap on hold, you bind off the back and the front stitches, and then you knit the other ear flap. Then you go back to the first ear flap, pick up the stitches, and knit the decreases in. And the edges of the ear flap are just stockinette. There's nothing special, but the way the decreases are kind of make it curl, and it almost looks like an I-cord edge. You can see that. Afterwards, you have 4 stitches that you can knit I-cord all the way down to your desired length. Then for the tassels, you actually cut strips of yarn that are like 7 inches long, and you thread them through the end of the I-cord. And then you take the tail of the I-cord and you wrap it around the base and then thread it down through the middle to kind of bind it off and keep it all together. This is a free pattern, so you can all check it out and kind of understand the construction, but I did enjoy knitting it overall, and I like the shape and the construction of the pattern. The gauge is 27 stitches on a 3.25mm needle, I believe, and that's pretty well the gauge that I got on the crown of the hat was 27 stitches. I did use the suggested needle size as well. The original pattern is just solid in color, but I decided I wanted to do stranded color work on the kind of in the round straight down portion of the hat. I created this chart to be the exact number of stitches all the way around as the hat. So it has this little kind of snowflake pattern. I thought it would be cute to put some bunnies on it because we have 2 pet bunnies. So I decided to do one that was kind of sitting and then one that was kind of hopping all the way around. I think it turned out perfectly. I think it's so cute actually. I'm so happy with that, how it turned out. I did have a couple issues with the pattern and the sizing specifically. So the shape of the pattern and the construction was fine, and I actually really liked the finished product, but I had some issues with the sizing. This pattern has sizes from children's all the way to adult size. So based on Devin's head measurements, he actually would be an adult large. So I cast on for the adult large, and it's the same as the smaller size, but you just do more increases before you start just knitting in the round. And I finished the increases. I put it on my head to see how it would fit, and it was massive. I have a smaller head than him, so I knew that it would be a little bigger than my head, but this was like monstrously large. It was concerning. I was like, if it's this big now, it's gonna be even bigger once I block it, and then it's gonna be just so big on his head. So I pulled back. I decided to go with the adult medium, which was a lot better. It's 128 stitches around. So that was fine. That was the first kind of issue that I had, but I fixed it. We course corrected. Then the pattern says to knit straight down for 9.5 inches for the adult medium size. Once I got to knitting in the round, I was making my colorwork chart. So the pattern said to knit 9.5 stitches in the round for this kind of straight part of the hat before you cast off for the front and back, or the adult medium size. So I used my row gauge for the crown to calculate how many rows my colorwork chart should be to meet around 9 inches long, which was about 60 rows. So I thought, okay, I'll use 60 rows as the height of my chart. And I had some really cute little extra motifs of colorwork on either side of the bunnies on my original chart. I can put a picture here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So this was 60 rows. I started knitting the snowflake pattern, and then I got to the end of the first little colorwork motif and I put it on my head. Again, it was really, really long. I was very concerned that if I had continued with the colorwork chart that I had, the hat would be down to his nose, essentially. So I basically just pulled back the little motif. I only did one round of the contrast color, and then I went straight into the bunny motif, and that wound up being a perfect height. It is kind of unfortunate that I didn't get the entire thing, because I think it looked a little bit more put together with the little motif on either side of the bunnies, but there's only so much you can do. This pattern creates a much taller hat than I would prefer. I don't know if it's a look to like have it kind of hanging off your head, or if my row gauge wound up being a little bit off for the color work. I did go up by half a needle size from a 3.25 to a 3.75 for the color work because I knew that it would be tighter. So maybe that's what the issue was, but I don't really know what the issue was, if I'm honest. If it was me, if it was the pattern, maybe it was a little bit of both. The hat at the end of the day looks incredible and fits him, but I did have an issue with the length and I had to pull back quite a bit on this hat. Other than that, it turned out well. The flaps were pretty easy. It's just back and forth stockinette with some decreases. The I-cord surprisingly went by very quickly. I think I did 40 rows of I-cord to get this length. And then the little tuft at the end, I actually mixed the contrast and the main color together. I think it turned out really nice. I gave it to Devin for Christmas and he loves it. The only thing is, I think I have to block this again. When I blocked it the first time, I was worried that the hat would be too big, so I didn't stretch it as much as I could. And it is a little bit snug on his head because I didn't stretch it all the way. So I think if I give it one more block and kind of stretch it out a little more aggressively, then it will be perfect. It still fits him, but it's just a little bit snug around the ears. Another issue I had when I was blocking it was the increases were really tight. I don't know what was going on, but they kind of puckered a little bit and it was hard to get it blocked nice and flat. That's probably a user issue and not a pattern issue, but it was actually kind of tedious to get it nice and flat and make sure it wasn't like puffed out at the top. You know what I mean? If any of you guys have knit this pattern, please let me know if it's also incredibly long for you or if it was just a me issue. I don't know. I think it was an okay pattern. It came together really quickly and I am happy with the end result, but it was kind of a struggle to get here. I'm not gonna lie. I do want to actually talk about the floats. Look at them. Aren't they clean? I feel like that's really nice. I say about my own knitting, but I actually do think it's quite nice. I wanted to talk about how I learned a new technique. When I was knitting this, I had some sections with quite a long stretch in between different colors, meaning I would have to catch the floats. Normally when I do stranded color work, I physically take the balls of yarn and I twist them over one another to catch the float. I don't know if that's like a standard way of doing it. That's always what I've done, but it's very tedious. So I learned to do it without lifting the balls of yarn and without letting go of the yarn in my hands. So when I do stranded color work, I have the contrast color on my left hand and the main color on my right hand. So I'll knit like English and continental style back and forth. So when I was catching the floats, all I did was like I would wrap my working yarn behind the yarn that I'm catching the float for. And so it would kind of catch the float in that stitch and then it would untwist in the next stitch. Does that make sense? I hope that is making sense to you guys. It saved so much time because I didn't have to let go of the yarn and then twist them. And it also kept my tension a little more even, I think. So I'm really happy with how the color work turned out and also how the floats are looking in the back. I think that it looks really great. I didn't knit more than 5 or 6 stitches without catching the float. Yeah, that's pretty well it. This is the top-down ear flap hat. I do like it. I don't know if I would knit it again. I think there's another ear flap hat out there that has like a fuzzy inner layer. I wonder if I were to do an ear flap hat again, if I would do that one. Yeah, this is the top-down ear flap hat. I don't think I'll be knitting this pattern again, but I am glad that I did it because I really likes it. that's it for everything I finished since my last video. I want to talk about the things that I'm working on, starting with the most exciting. This is the Ivy blouse from Petiteknit. Last time you saw this, it was kind of barely a rectangle, but now it's really coming together. Hopefully you can see this whole thing. This is from Petiteknit. It is a top-down sweater knit in the round. I don't know how you would describe this shoulder construction. You basically start at the neckline. It has this little rolled neckline. You knit a few rounds of stockinette. Then you do some increases. You start with increases just for the sleeves, and then you do some raglan increases to shape the rest of the armhole. So it creates this kind of nice fitted shoulder construction. The body is knit just straight down in the round, and the sleeves have some decreases on them. There's also a rolled edge on the body and the sleeves. This is knit with 2 strands of silk mohair held together on a 3.5mm needle. I am absolutely loving the way this turned out. I had kind of a hard time deciding which mohair sweater pattern I wanted to use, but I'm so pleased with how this is turning out. Like, are you kidding me? The pattern is really straightforward, and I honestly really like the fit of this pattern. I had looked at so many different mohair top patterns, but this is the exact vibe that I was going for. I wanted something that was a little more fitted. I only had about 1,000 meters of yarn to work with. This really just fit the bill. I recently put the sleeves on hold, just on some scrap yarn, and now I'm currently just working on the body. I've got about, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches on the body. I don't know how long I'm gonna make it, but definitely longer than this. Here's the back. Yeah, there's not much to say about this pattern. It's honestly pretty straightforward. I met gauge. It has a 23 stitch gauge, so I did meet gauge with the recommended needles, which is great. So the yarn I'm using is the Knitting Loft Dust Mohair in the color Candy Floss. This is a 70/30 mohair silk yarn. It is hand dyed by the Knitting Loft. And it's got this like really nice creamy kind of base with some fun speckles of pink, a little bit of blue, purple, yellow throughout. I honestly am obsessed with this yarn. It's so beautiful. Since this is hand dyed, I decided to knit from 2 balls of this at once. Purchased 4 of these in total, and 2 of them are skeined up to knit together, just because I wanted to reduce the amount of pooling or striping that might be going on, even though this is pretty well a speckled yarn, but just to err on the side of caution. I'm honestly loving how this fabric is turning out. It is insane. Like, it's got this really nice kind of warm pink creamy base, but then you get these pops of bright pink or blue here and there, and it just is so much fun. But at the same time, from afar, it's not too much. You know what I mean? I love it. I actually love it. It has such a great halo as well. As I said in my last video, it is a little bit rough on my fingers, I will say, because the metal needle along with the silk core of the yarn is just a little rough feeling, you know? It's kind of scratchy. I wouldn't say that this mohair itself is scratchy. It's definitely quite soft and it would be comfortable against my skin, but something about the silk core on my finger is a little tough, so I do have to take breaks here and there, but I feel like I'm making such good progress on this. I'm so pleased. I can't wait to be able to wear this. My goal is to wear this by New Year's Eve. I currently have a week to finish this. We will see if I actually get that done. Then I'll put this in my Everything I Knit in 2026 video. If not, it will have to wait till January. But I have a strong feeling that I can get this done because I'm so motivated to be able to wear this. I really love the Knitting Loft hand-dyed kind of collection of yarns. I think that their mohair and their DK base is really nice, and they have a nice variety of kind of speckly variegated yarns that are interesting. I knit my Amy sweater last year in their Converse base in the Cheeky DK, and I really liked it, so I was happy to pick up another Knitting Loft brand yarn, and this is my first time knitting with the silk mohair. I'm really enjoying it. The one thing I will say about that mohair is it does shed quite a bit, but if I'm honest, I have never found a mohair that doesn't shed, so I'm not too fussed by it. Just be aware that if you're knitting with 2 strands of mohair, everything in your vicinity will be covered in mohair. But I honestly don't mind. As a knitter, I am completely fine with everything I own being covered in mohair. So this is she. It's I'm speechless. I think it's beautiful and I can't wait to wear it. On to the next thing I've been working on. In my last episode, you'll remember I was talking about some Colourwork mittens that I made for my brother and sister-in-law from the yarn that they got me on their honeymoon from Scotland. I made them a pair of mittens only to realize that I had made 2 right-handed mittens. So unfortunately, I am stuck with the task of making 2 left-handed mittens. I told myself I would cast them on before Christmas and I did. I just didn't finish them, which is okay. Let me talk about the yarn first. The yarn I'm using is from Sky Weavers. It is their natural white and their natural gray in the DK base. It's like Pure Gint, kind of a heavy DK, I would say, just in these natural kind of woolly colors. They're from Scottish sheep's wool. These were a lovely gift and I thought it would be so nice to knit them some Colourwork mittens using this yarn. So the first mittens I made, I'll put a picture on the screen. They were unfortunately both the same hand. My whole plan was to make another pair that is the same pattern but with reverse colors. So I cast it on. The first pair was main color was white and the contrast color was gray. This pair, the main color is gray and the contrast color is white. This is all I have, but it's better than nothing and I held myself accountable to cast it on, so I'm happy about that. The pattern I'm using is the Norwegian Mittens for Mimi by Anna Mazzarella. I believe this is a free pattern online for Colourwork Mittens, so I'm using this as a base for the cuff and the shaping and everything like that. But the color work is from a Rauma Garn pattern. It's the 320-3 Vater. It has like this floral kind of design with swirls. It's very cute. That's what I used on the last mitten, so I'm just gonna run it back and make a matching mitten in the reverse colors for the other hand. So then each of them can have a mitten in the same pattern, just reverse colors. One's gray on one hand and one is white on the other. I think it's a cute idea. It's just a matter of actually doing it. I don't know what it is about Colourwork mittens that I have this mental block where I just don't want to do them. I thought it would be such a good idea on the first one and it also took me forever to make them. But the regular mittens, even with the flap, I just fly through them. So I don't know what it is about Colourwork mittens that I just have this mental block and I don't want to do it. This is going to be a bit of a struggle, but I'm going to make it through because I'm so determined to give them each a pair of mittens. It's been way too long. So yeah, I at least cast it on. Obviously I don't have it done for Christmas. Today is December 26th as I'm filming this, but my goal for these is to have it done for my brother's birthday, which is the end of March. I feel like that is a reasonable goal. It's plenty of time. I can work on this slowly and it might not be so difficult in my mind to get them done if I kind of have a goal, a timeline that's a little further in advance. 4 months almost is plenty of time in my eyes. So that is what's going on with these. I wanted to show them to you to keep myself accountable because I want these to be done. And this is all I have so far. Basically, these are just knit from the cuff up. You do some increases for the thumb, put the thumb on hold, continue knitting the rest of the mitten, close the top with some decreases, and then just finish the thumb as usual. There's nothing super special about it. I'm just using the Colourwork chart from the Rauma mittens on the shaping for the mittens for Mimi. I'm knitting these on a 3mm needle. These are Lika wooden needles, just a fixed circular. This is the palm of the mitten, so it's got like a checkered situation. And then the other side is going to be, it's just barely, just a little baby bit of color work, but it's the bottom part of the floral pattern. So that's it. Not as exciting as the Ivy blouse, but I think that it will be exciting when these are done and off my plate. That is my Colourwork mittens. That's everything I've been working on. I know it's only 2 things, but I have a lot of exciting kind of New Year's knitting plans that I want to chat with you about in a separate video. So that will be all for my things that I've been working on. I do have some new kind of goodies and things that I've gotten since the last video that I want to chat about. The first thing is actually something I got back in the summer and I haven't been able to show it on a video because it is a gift for my friend who knits and watches all my videos, so I didn't want to spoil the surprise. But when I was in Iceland, I got her a ball of Plötulopi in the ivory beige color. I believe the color is 1038. It's kind of like an oatmeal-y, creamy kind of color. I thought it would be good with her complexion and also kind of a neutral base. She's also never knit with unspun yarn, as had I when I purchased it, so it was really exciting for me to be able to share some unspun yarn with her directly from Iceland. So yeah, I purchased that back in July. To go along with it, I got her a skein of alpaca silk yarn because I thought it would be easier for her to knit with unspun for the first time if she was holding it with something. something. So I went to my local yarn shop, which is Pearl and Jay's Yarn Co. And I got a skein of Lillian Pine hand-dyed alpaca silk. It's a 26% silk and a 74% brushed alpaca in the color Lily Pad. I think that's what it was called. It was either Lily Pad or Leapfrog. I don't think it's a color that they make anymore, but the base of it was like this nice kind of neutral oatmeal-y tone that went so well with the Plötulopi, and then it had these pops of bright green and black. It was a little different, honestly, than what she usually knits with, but I thought it went so well with the Plötulopi that it was a perfect match. So I wound up mailing those to her for her birthday, and she's cast on a hat with it. I can show you pictures. She sent me some really beautiful pictures for me to share on my video. It's turning out so well. She's knitting a 1x1 ribbed beanie with it, and it's looking great. I know it's not something that I got for myself, but it's still exciting because a new yarn acquisition is exciting, of course, for anyone. So yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to chat about with you. The next thing I got were some Sandnes Garn pattern booklets. So I mentioned earlier in the video that I went to Peterborough, Ontario for a rotation for school. I had some time off during that time, so I was able to check out their local yarn store, which is called Needles in the Hay. They actually have a really nice selection of yarns, and they have a great selection of books and booklets. I poked around in there and I found these two booklets from Sandnes Garn, which I have been looking for forever. Let me just show them to you and then I'll talk about it. The first one I got is the Marius Lady Sweater, which the code for it is 2410-02. You will recognize this from a previous video where I talked about it if you've been following along, because this is like so impossible to find. I saw this pattern on Ravelry and I thought it was so beautiful with the color work on the yoke and the way that it's constructed. The 2410 book from Sandnes Garn is called Nordic Icons, I think, or Norwegian Icons. It has multiple patterns in it, but that's sold out essentially everywhere. And I know there were some changes recently with the availability of the Sandnes Garn booklets and books in Canada. This is like insane that I found this, honestly, in Peterborough of all places. So yeah, this is the first one that I got. This can be knit top down or bottom up, and it calls for Peergynt. So I believe the gauge is 20 stitches on a 4mm needle, and it has this kind of two-toned stranded color work on the top. It's got a drop shoulder and a folded neckline. I don't know when I'm going to knit this, but I do love it, and I've loved it for years, so I'm just glad that I have my hands on it. I can knit it eventually when the time is right. The second one that I got is also from the Nordic Icons book. It is the Cleva Lady Sweater, and the code is 2410-4. So this is an all-over color work with this kind of geometric pattern. I honestly really like the colors that they chose, this kind of blue and orange, and it calls for tin Peergynt. So this is actually a fingering weight sweater, which I didn't realize when I first purchased it. But nonetheless, I think it's beautiful and I would love to knit it eventually. But yeah, this is another one from the same book. It's just an individual booklet, and I just can't believe it because this is like also sold out everywhere. I've also been curious about what the format of these booklets actually is. The way they're constructed is interesting. They have little pockets where the chart comes out on this one. This one has like a little pop-out situation where the chart folds out like this. So yeah, these are the two Sandnes Garn booklets that I got. Like I said, I don't know when I'll be knitting them, but I will eventually, and I'm happy to have them in my collection. Also, when I was in Peterborough, I was taking a peek around the Needles in the Hay yarn store, and they had an incredible collection of knitting books. I've honestly never been a huge knitting book gal because I just hadn't found anything that really spoke to me, but I did get a couple when I was there because they had a really nice selection of them. The first one is a pattern book. It is the Lane Magazine Nordic Knits pattern book. This I'm sure you will recognize. It has a feature on Petiteknit, which is interesting, and then the patterns are just beautiful. It has this kind of floral motif on a vest and on a cardigan. There's some other more simple ones, some nice textures on here and accessories. I can put some pictures on the screen of all of the patterns that are in here, but I've always loved the patterns in this book, and I haven't been able to find it in person or in stock in a lot of yarn places, so I saw it and I grabbed it. So this is the first book that I got. I am excited to kind of dive into this and get some inspiration for some Nordic color work knits, and also I think that the images and visuals in here are really beautiful. Same with all of the other Lane magazines and books, so I am really glad that I could find this one. The other book that I got is called the Knitwear Manual, and it is all about designing knitwear and sort of the process that goes goes into it. It's more of like a textbook kind of style. It has details about all the different styles of construction, types of sweaters. It has like some charts in the back. It has info about like all the edges and embellishments and styles of knitwear, different yarn and considerations that go into designing a sweater. I don't know if I will be designing a sweater anytime soon, but I find this very interesting. I think it'll be a good resource to help me expand my knowledge of knitwear and designing knitwear, because I've knit so many sweaters in my time. It actually might be interesting eventually to make or design my own sweater, but for now I'll be learning, I'll be studying, and I actually am excited to dive into this. Like I said, it's more of a textbook, but I find things like this very interesting and useful references for my own knitting and creating. So this is the second book that I got from Needles in the Hay. The final book I got, I actually don't have with me because I gave it away as a Christmas gift to my knitting friend, but it is from West Yorkshire Spinners. It's called Impressions. The reason I got it is because it has such bold and unique patterns. I thought it would be perfect for my friend who also knits. The styles just seemed like something that would be up her alley. I can put some pictures of the patterns that are on the screen here, but she was really happy with it. They're all using DK weight yarn, and I think they use a West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, but you could use whatever yarn you want. I don't have it with me, but I did give it away for Christmas, and I also got it from Needles in the Hay. Speaking of Christmas gifts, I did receive a couple knitting related things for Christmas this year. My boyfriend gave me this knitting book, which is Happy Nordic Knits. And this is from Une Cecile Oxfold. She is a Norwegian knitwear designer. This book is inspired by her journey kind of finding peace and happiness in outdoors, hiking in Norway with her dog, which is kind of sweet. The patterns are super colorful and bright. I can show you a couple of them. This one on the cover is incredible. This pattern is in the book. Another one of my favorites is the Blossom sweater, which is this one here. It's an all over kind of color work. This one is really speaking to me. But yeah, this is kind of the vibe. There's some sweater patterns that are mostly bright kind of color work. A couple more neutral ones. Really good for outdoors. And also some accessories and some no waste projects that are intended to be made with the leftovers from the sweaters. There are some info about techniques in here as well, and I'm really excited about this book, not only because the colors are incredible and I'm really loving all of the color work that's happening in here, but also because they have some techniques that I've never used. Some of these sweaters are actually knit from the bottom up, which I've never done, and they're knit by steeking the armhole, which is insane to me. So you basically knit an entire tube for the body up to the shoulders, and then you reinforce and cut open the armhole to finish the sweater with the sleeves. I've never done that. It scares me, but I'm excited to try, and I think that it'll be good for me to kind of challenge myself and try something new and different. So this is an incredible, incredible gift, and I'm so excited to knit from this in 2026. The last thing I want to talk about is actually some unofficial Hellaknits merch. My boyfriend got me a tote bag with the Hellaknits logo on it. As you can tell, it's actually been loved already and needs to be washed. I've been carrying my yarn around in this on our travels around Christmas time. Yeah, this is her. I have the Hellaknits logo on this bag, as well as a Hellaknits travel mug, you guys. I'm actually obsessed with this, and I needed a new travel mug anyway. I obviously am not selling merch, but I do feel very official with my Hellaknits merch. That brings me to kind of reflecting on the last year. As I said at the beginning of this video, this is the same sweater I wore when I filmed my very first YouTube video 1 year ago today. I can't believe it's been an entire year, and I'm almost at 700 subscribers. That is mind-boggling to me. I can't thank you guys enough for watching and following along and supporting me in my YouTube adventure. I am so glad that I was brave and filmed my first video and just decided to go for it, because it's been so much fun, so rewarding, and I feel like I've been so creative the past year, more so than usual. It's been so nice kind of fostering this community with you guys, and I just want to say thank you again for all your support throughout this year. It's been awesome. I can't wait to keep going in 2026. That is everything I had to talk talk to you about today. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around to the end of the video, thank you. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to be updated the next time I post a Hella Knits video. You can find me elsewhere. I post updates on my Instagram, which is at hella.knits, with photos of my knits as I'm working on them, or just things that I'm doing that are knitting related. You can get more details from my knitting projects on my Ravelry, which is at Hella Knitting. Everything including yarn, yardage, gauge, notes, stuff like that. It's all on there. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. Let me know what you want to see from me in 2026, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Bye!